I'm Maryelen Calderwood, and this is Greenfield, Massachusetts, and we're on the town common for Tax Day Rally. This is an international movement against war and giant military budgets. This is democracy here.
Good worker, good news to you I'll tell of how the good old Union has come in here to dwell. Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? My mother is a feminist and she taught me to see until we all have justice, not one of us is free.
Come gather. We have a fabulous program today. We don't want to miss any of it. My name is Ferd Welkin. I'm with Franklin County Continuing the Political Revolution, FCCPR. We are a multi-issue radical organization here in Franklin County. We do both work in the electoral system. We endorse candidates, and when we endorse candidates, they win. And we do work on issues. We don't just work in the electoral system. We think the profit motive is not the best way to organize society, that we can do a whole lot better than that. So today of all days seems like the appropriate time to have a rally on the theme of peace. We know what's happening in Syria, but we also know that there are countless wars that our country has been engaged in over the last many, many years. This isn't just a one-time thing. So this rally is really important from the perspective of Franklin County CPR. We have 7 task forces that you'll be hearing from that work on a variety of issues. And so often we hear, oh, great idea, but there's no money. Well, the reality is there is lots of money, but it's going to the military. So that's why this event is bringing together all our task forces, all our issues on the themes of taxation and war and peace. So just a couple of quick announcements. You'll see there are people with cameras here. They are from Democracy Here, which is CPR's own television station. There's a YouTube channel. You can get to it from the CPR website. There are already several really, really excellent programs. I recommend that people watch them. And when you have a chance, take a look at the table. CPR has a table, but so do a lot of the other organizations that are co-sponsoring this event. So thanks everybody for being here, and on with the show.
Hi everybody. It's a beautiful day, but it's also windy, so it's blowing our words away. So we really would like everyone who's here to come over in front of the, get closer. And there's signs here to hold. And if you hold them in the direction of the road, people will see it. There are demonstrations across the country today opposing the recent tax giveaway bill, giving millions to the people who need it the least and taking from those who need it the most. That's one reason we're here. We're also here about the military budget. And of course today, I think I have to tell you, we're here for peace as opposed to endless war and these illegal strikes.
Hi, Anna Georgie. I know that you are a member of the Peace Task Force of Franklin County Continuing the Political Revolution, and you're one of the co-organizers of this Tax Day rally here. Can you tell me a little bit about what was important to you about organizing this?
Yes, I'm really so pleased that we could be part of what's kind of a national and international movement against swollen military budgets, because it's not just in our country, but ours is the worst. It is just incredible, and it's not new. It's been going on for really decades that so much of the discretionary budget, 75%, 75 cents for every dollar, goes to the military. And the jobs that it creates are jobs that
do not strengthen our communities. They bring really death and pollution. It's also, the military is also the greatest polluter of any, more than in most countries. And of course today, when we just found out that the strikes were done in our name on Syria, this is not what we want, it's not what we need, and there clearly will be civilian casualties. But the whole point is these wars, they need to be solved by international troops pulling out and diplomacy. And I think that we need a women's movement on this, the children's movement on this, and for the CPR, the Continuing the Political Revolution, which has task forces that work on different parts of the problems that we all face. This is a coming together, saying that all these different issues are related in terms of the priorities, financial and also media and cultural in our country. And we need more attention to what will really bring us security.
That's great. And in terms of other local actions, what can other people do you think, to help join this, to help get on board with this movement and write their congressman, or what do you think that we can do at a local level?
Sure, I think every group can assess what the current situation, how they're being affected, and really speak out on that. Instead, it's like we kind of hunker down and we do more with less, and instead of really naming the problem. And I know in our area there's a tremendous amount of support for people who are hungry and homeless, and frankly, these are political problems. This shouldn't exist in this country. And so I think it's good to feed people and it's good to provide shelter, but we need to demand affordable housing and really not just talk about the middle class. It's almost doesn't exist anymore. We have the very, very rich and everybody else. So there are people who are joining the Poor People's Campaign who can be against poverty in our country. Many of us can experience it tomorrow if there's a catastrophe or a problem in our families, and community coming together is really important. I'm really happy about the Peace Task Force because I'm a board member of the Trap Rock Center for Peace and Justice, but it doesn't have like an activist membership. It has wonderful projects that reach out and talk about peace and justice, but under the Continuing the Political Revolution Peace Task Force, that's a place where we can work together and decide what we can do and what we can offer people in the community to work on. And this is our very first action. We've only met for like 2 months.
That's great.
So it's brand new. So we hope people will join us.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much.
Okay, take care.
Hi there. Your name is?
Spirit.
Sarah.
Christian.
And where do you come from?
We're from Greenfield.
Greenfield.
Excellent.
Greenfield.
Too? Great. And so what is it about this tax rally that you see that interests you? Why did you come over here? Because I know you said that you were walking up the street and this caught your eye. What is it about it?
Well, anytime that I see any type of protest, any type of people in the community getting together and organizing towards a more peaceful and a more inclusive local and world community, it's something that I want to be a part of. I want to learn more, and I want my son to be a part of as well, and to understand and to see that there are people out there working and moving towards a more peaceful and a more conscious Earth community.
So this is really an effort about giant tax budgets and war. It's sort of, we're against war, and it's sort of ironic that it happened just a day after the attacks on Syria. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think in general, I think that this country's spending an incredible amount on our defense budget and how much we expend and how little we spend on each other, and how this country starts to represent where we're at, in a way around the world, and how I think it's really scary times. It doesn't seem to be any kind of settling. I don't know, I'm nervous.
I think it's a hypocrisy. I think to go into a country to say that you're there for democracy, to say that you're there to help save the people, and to bomb their homes, to go in and to completely decimate these people's lives and culture in the name of democracy is hypocrisy. And I think it needs to end. I'm tired of it.
Thank you very much, and thanks for talking to me today. I hope you stick around for the whole event. Thank you.
I have 3 points to make. And the first one is diplomacy is out, airstrikes are in. And we can certainly see that with last night's preemptive strike. Trump and Congress have opened the floodgates, pouring more money from our taxes into the Department of Defense, we should call it the Department of War, and feeding greed and starving need. Anna has in her hand, Anna, okay, hold it up. She's got $1, and I want to explain our federal budget with that $1. After Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security are taken from the budget to pay those who deserve it, we have, this $1 represents what's left. It's called the discretionary budget. Now let me tell you, with that discretionary budget, how much Department of Defense gets and how much the rest of us get. The Department of Defense gets 74 cents of this $1 for war, for supporting itself, for buying weapons from the military-industrial complex, for the 800 bases that we have around the world, etc. So, what does food and agriculture get? A penny of this for food and agriculture. 3 pennies for energy and environment. This is in the midst of the climate crisis. 4 cents for diplomacy and education each. And this is, of course, why public school teachers are striking because of their low salaries and their underfunded schools. A nickel each for low-income housing and for community and public health. So each of these human needs gets crumbs from the master's table, to quote that great black poet Audre Lorde. Second point I want to make, and it's very related. This depraved economic injustice of the new tax plan recently passed by Congress. Under this plan, the top 1% of our income bracket gets $33,000 a year back in their income taxes. And those living on less than 25% get a tax break of $40 per year. And finally, to speak to what we can do. First of all, as we're doing, voice our opposition. This is happening across the country to U.S. re-entering the war in Syria. As I found out in doing some reading this morning, first of all, we know that Trump had no interest with respect to human rights. If he did, we would have accepted more than 11 Syrian war refugees this year. Voice our opposition to nuclear war against North Korea and war. There are war drums beating for war on Iran. Join the Massachusetts Poor People's Campaign, which had their first organizing meeting here in Franklin County this week. Challenge Democrats and Republicans alike at the federal and the state level, liberals and progressives as well as conservatives, on their position on the immoral defense budget and also on poverty. 1 in 5 children in this country live in poverty. The U.S., it has been said, is a leader across the world in child poverty. Now, the word poverty was raised one time in the 2016 primaries and the election, and the defense budget was actually never brought up in the primaries, the debates, and the debates around the election. The defense budget is a sacred cow to both Democrats and Republicans. And we need a new breed of progressives in office, including more women and more people of color who are unafraid to challenge our military superpower, which is, by the way, also the largest single institutional polluter of the world, and that's a combination of toxic waste as well as climate change emissions. Thank you. So the final message, vote in 2018 to turn our swords into plowshares. Thank you.
Hi, Pat.
Hi.
Hi. Can you just introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, and sort of why you're here? What are we doing this for today?
Okay. I'm Pat Hines. I direct the Trap Rock Center for Peace and Justice here in Western Massachusetts. I'm here to speak out against the defense budget, about our constant wars, and also the tax plan, the immoral tax plan that was just passed by Republicans and Democrats, and then also to suggest some ideas for what we can do to turn back this tide and to beat swords into plowshares.
And maybe one or two things you think that we could be doing today to affect change in this regard?
I think just a visible protest, especially for people driving up on the street, very important. Covering it by media, which you're making sure happens, most important for people who aren't here. And I think to be strategic in the recommendations that we all have, who will be speaking today, about what we can do to flip the situation in 2018.
And it seems a little timely given our, the last evening strikes against Syria. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I do. Yeah. I think it was an impulsive move. It's a move done out of image. I don't think that there's any real concern for the Syrian people themselves. And I think that's evidenced by the fact that we have only taken in, as a country or as a government, 11 Syrian war refugees this year. So much for caring about them. It's about image, so that we look like we are up for contending with Russia and Syria.
It's great. Thank you so much for being here and doing the important work that you're doing, and I look forward to hearing more of your comments today. Thank you.
Howdy, my name's Mary McClintock. Thank you to the organizers of this rally and to CPR for all that you're doing. I've stood on this common for an hour most Saturdays since September 2002, when Susan DeRazio and I walked up to the common from the west, over there, at the same time that Ava Gibbs and Tori walked up to the common from the east. Each pair of us had decided that Franklin County needed a peace vigil, and we picked the same day, time, and place, not knowing the other pair had chosen that time. We came together to speak out against the then one-year-old U.S. war on Afghanistan, and in hopes of trying to keep the U.S. from starting a war in Iraq. We knew the terrible cost in human lives, communities, and money that war brings. Today, the U.S. is involved in more wars, and people are fed up with endless war. I get lots of positive responses to my Peace is Cheaper sign and my brand new apron. Soon after we started the Greenfield Weekly Peace Vigil, I attended the Women's Congress for Peace in Northampton, where I talked with other peace activists about ways to encourage others to join the movement for peace. Kate Harris said, "We have to be like lifeboats rowing up to a sinking ship. We need to provide an attractive alternative that people want to swim toward." Ever since that conversation, whenever I consider what I am doing with my life, I think, is this a lifeboat activity? That's led to a lot of lifeboat activities in my activism, on this common, in my writing, in my work. It was key to what I wrote in my local food column for 10 years, to my involvement with Juanita Nelson's Free Harvest Supper, and to my work with Cynthia Blyle to create the 2017 Greenfield Women's Rally. Woo! There we go. Get my other apron now. Pardon me for a second. I have a costume change. Now, I'm immensely fortunate to work for a major lifeboat, Franklin County's federally funded anti-poverty agency, Community Action Pioneer Valley. Our Community Action is one of over 1,200 similar agencies created during the War on Poverty in the 1960s to send federal money to local communities to address the needs of that community. Our Community Action is a lifeboat to many of our neighbors, helping them have what they need to lead healthy, prosperous, and fulfilling lives. Our Community Action provides food and heat for our neighbors, helps our neighbors get full federal and state tax refunds and credits, educates and cares for young children, helps our neighbors find resources they need to keep their homes, helps our neighbors find meaningful work, helps our neighbors resolve their conflicts, supports our neighbors as they care for their families, and provides activities, job training, and internships for young people, and more. Woo! Yeah! When I talked with Community Action Executive Director Claire Higgins about this tax day rally, she said, "We need money for food, for preserving tenancies, and for early education. Yes, instead of paying for war, let's spend our money building the lifeboats, the attractive alternatives that lift us all." What are your lifeboat activities? Come join us at the weekly Peace Vigil here on the Common every Saturday from 11 to 12. It's a great place to plan lifeboat activities.
Hi there. I know that you just spoke a little bit about your involvement here, but you have a couple of extra minutes to add something beyond what you've said, so I'm interested in that.
Great. My name is Mary McClintock, and I live in Conway here in Franklin County, and I stand on the Greenfield Town Common every Saturday in the Greenfield Weekly Peace Vigil that I helped found in September 2002. And what I want to talk about that I didn't say in this talk is two things. One is that it is really exhilarating to me to get to come together with other people and about things I care about, like peace, and about making sure that everybody in our community has what they need, and work together with other people. And I cannot tell you how many things have been organized on this common in that Peace Vigil. And anybody who's thinking about having a meeting about, let's get a meeting to plan this event or this rally or this postcard campaign or this civil disobedience, whatever, come have your meeting at the Peace Vigil, 11 to 12, Saturdays. I mean, it is like, why are you sitting in a room somewhere? Just come hold a sign and have your meeting standing on the Common. That's one thing. The other thing is, one of the things we did very early on in the Iraq War was, during the U.S.-Iraq War, we had a rally on this Common called 100 Ways to Stop a War. And there were all these people and this idea for this came from all these people who were saying to me, "Oh, I'm not really into doing vigils," or "Oh, I'm not really into civil disobedience," or "Oh, I'm not really into writing postcards to congresspeople," or "I'm not really into," and it's like, you don't have to all do the same thing. Rumi's poem says there's 100 ways to kneel and kiss the ground. I mean, there's 100 ways to stop a war. There's 100 ways to get the money we need for our community. Pick one and do it. And that's what we did in that rally, was we had got people, we talked about all the different possible ways, because we need all of them. We need all of them. There's no one right way, there's 100 ways.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, Greenfield. All the people that stand for peace, walk for peace, raise money for peace. I have a great sign here. It says peace and justice. What would Wally Nelson do? How many people know Wally Nelson? Yeah. Woo! Juanita Nelson. There he is right there. Fair ways, he said. Fair ways. And Juanita Nelson, she really believed that our actions were our lives. That's what she believed. So here, let me put this sign down. Somebody wants to. Thank you very much. So, to quote, somebody's been talking for peace, standing for peace for a long time. John Lennon, all we are saying is give peace a chance. So I have a song that I wrote. It's called Brand New Way. Gets to the chorus. You can join in, and here we go. Rise up and show the world you're caring. Give love, you know that it's for sharing. Take heart, burdens are for bearing. We can stand together, build a brand new. Give it a try. Rise up and show the world you can. Give love, you know that it's for sharing. Take heart, burdens are for bearing. We can stand together, build a brand new day. Look around the world, we see our families crying. Doesn't seem to matter all the things we're trying. Another needle in the arm is just a message. New day is dawning and it's time for healing. Rise up and show the world you can. Give love. Give love. You know that it's first. Take heart. Take burdens are for bear. We can stand together, build a brand new day. Step into the light and you can feel it changing. All the things we've waited for are rearranging. Wrap your arms around me when I get that empty feeling. New day is dawning and it's time for healing. Rise up and show the world you're king. Let's hear it. Give. You know that it's for. Take heart. Burdens are for bearing. We can stand together, build a brand new day. Sing out and hear the truth ringing. We can change it all, and all it takes is singing. From the end to the beginning, we can use our hearts and voices. New day is dawning and a brand new way. Rise up and show the world give love. You know that it's for sharing. Take heart, burdens are for bearing. We can stand together, build a brand new. Your turn, go. Yes. And give love. Give love. You know that it's for. Take heart. Take burdens. Burdens are for bearing. We can stand together, build a brand new day. Take heart. Take heart, community. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for being here today and showing up.
Annie, you are a staple in this community, and you sing peace and you sing about equality, and you're at the Tax Day rally, and so I want to give you a couple of minutes to talk about that, and really in particular kind of interested in how and why you use song to get that message out, and how long you've been doing that.
Well, I've been doing it a long time. Let me see. I've been singing since I was 5, but out in front of people since I was 12.
And what about today? What inspired you today about your song?
Today, I'm thinking about Wally and Juanita Nelson. Here's Wally, war tax resistor from 1948 or something. He said he didn't have to. You don't gotta pay. And for that, actually, he went to jail for a year and a half. He was on a hunger strike. They fed him through a tube, and he was always in front of our post office with a group of people that tried to convince people that war wasn't the answer, and we certainly didn't want to pay for war, along with friends like Randy Keeler, who actually kind of lost his house for a while over the principle of he could not see people dying over the money that he was paying for taxes, so he didn't pay. So I've been singing. Singing has gone right back to, you think of the blacks in the fields, just forever. That's the way. When they couldn't communicate, people couldn't communicate, and they had no other way of saying what they wanted to say. It was always through song. And to me, music is God made manifest on the spiritual plane, and I bring it here from my spirit, and I bring it here because it changes lives, and it goes so deep in a lot of ways that other things like just talking in words doesn't do. So thanks for asking me the question.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Hello, everybody. I'm Susan Hackney from the Mediation and Training Collaborative. Yay! Which is a program of community action, and we help people resolve conflicts peacefully through mediation, through one-on-one conflict coaching, through group facilitation, and we help people learn to resolve their own conflicts better by doing trainings in communication and in mediation. Last year, the Mediation and Training Collaborative helped approximately 1,400 people with conflict, and their budget was $244,500. That's just short of $250,000. Meanwhile, one military drone cost $12,578,000 to produce. That's approximately 51 times the budget of the Mediation and Training Collaborative. And last year, in 2017, the Air Force ordered 10 of those military drones, the production of each one costing $12,578,000. After production, to use a drone, the cost is a minimum of $2,500 per hour. Wow. If the Mediation and Training Collaborative had one fraction of that money, we could help resolve conflict for every individual, every couple, and every organization in Franklin County, and still have some time and staff left to work with those people from Hampshire County. Anybody here from Hampshire County? No? Okay. And Hampden County. Oh, I see somebody over there. Great. If you want more information about mediation, about conflict coaching, about facilitation, or about trainings in communication or mediation, there's a table over here with literature, and I'd be happy to talk with you. Meanwhile, thank you for coming. Thank you for standing up. And thank you for continuing to stand up and speak out.
Hi, Susan. Susan Hackney from the Mediation and Training Collaborative, correct? That's right. And you just spoke a couple of minutes ago. I wanted to give you a couple of extra minutes to sort of add some additional thoughts if you had it about the day, please feel free to add what just happened yesterday in Syria. If you have any thoughts about anything, feel free.
Well, one thing I didn't have a chance to say when I was speaking is that the Mediation and Training Collaborative used to have mediation programs in 5 schools in Franklin County. Now we have only 1 because the funding was cut. And this is an amazing thing to have programs in schools because the kids learn early that they can resolve conflicts. Right. And I have met a number of young adults in their 20s and 30s who had been mediators when they were in high school or elementary school, and it's really changed their lives for because they believe conflict can be resolved. So that's one way that if there were more money, the Mediation and Training Collaborative could be serving more people. And then all people who use the services of the Mediation and Training Collaborative, some of the services are free and some are on a sliding scale and some are flat fee. If we had more funding, then more services could be offered for free or on a lower scale. So it would really help a lot more people that way.
So what can we do as a local community other than what we're doing right here? What else can we do to sort of push the message finally about the military budgets and war, especially the morning after the attacks in Syria?
Right. Yes, I just feel sick about Syria. That's a big question, and I'm not sure I have the answer. Yeah. I think the Franklin County Continuing the Political Revolution is doing a great job. I'm a new member of that organization. Thank you. And I went to a General Assembly meeting a few months ago, and it was the most efficiently run meeting I'd ever seen. And people are really getting things done. So I think I also read something the other day that we can't expect to reach success with the first try, and that so we have to be in it for the long haul.
Right. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
I'm Mel from RJR, or Racial Justice Rising. If you're not familiar with the organization, it's a local Franklin County group. although we have people from all over the country, actually, and actually some international. I just want to read a little bit from the website. Our mission is twofold: to help build the movement for racial justice by contributing to a deeper understanding of systemic racism and racial justice, and to engage in restorative activities that help to heal the racial divide and bring justice for people targeted by racism. So today, of course, we're talking about war and militarism on a day after a grotesque example of exactly what that brings us. People have already spoken to that. In terms of race and racism, of course, the connections between race and racism on the one hand and war and militarism on the other are, of course, many, and you probably know those, if not most, if not all of those, I'm sure. But just to take one example, which has been, of course, addressed previously, war and militarism seriously detract from the capacity to address other needs of the population, pressing needs, not incidental needs and not luxuries. And those include redressing the racial inequality in our country, in education, health, housing, in social services generally, and so on. And of course, let's not forget the legal and criminal justice systems. The list could go on of the reasons for which our military spending could be put to better use than it is today. So you may notice that I'm here representing RJR, Racial Justice Rising, and I am not myself a person of color. So I'd like to bring in, at least by quotation, someone who is, and of course Martin Luther King, for various reasons these days, this time of the year is relevant. It's an anniversary of his assassination. It's also the anniversary of a speech he gave in 1967, a year to the day of his assassination, entitled Beyond Vietnam. He gave that speech at Riverside Church in New York City on April 4th, 1967. I mentioned it was a year to the day before he was murdered. It's here that he spoke of the very famous words, "the fierce urgency of now." It's a long speech, but I encourage you to listen to it if you haven't already, for a lot of what Dr. King said is still relevant today. It was a speech attacked by seemingly everyone in the country, almost, including his allies in the civil rights movement, for connecting the Vietnam War to racial and economic injustice at home. He was widely denounced. He knew it would be risky. He talked of the war as an enemy of the poor. He talked of many things. I obviously cannot recount all of those. But in his speech, he put special emphasis on a true revolution of values in this country. Emphasis also on revolution. He didn't shy away from that. A revolution that will confront and root out what he called the giant triplets of racism, extreme materialism, and militarism. He understood that peace and civil rights were interconnected. And he notes, and I'll end with this, because it connects directly up to RJR's current support and encouragement of the Poor People's Campaign that is underway right now and was mentioned by a previous speaker. The Poor People's Campaign was one of the civil rights movement's great initiatives. It was something that ended up being abandoned because of the war. And as Dr. King noted, the promise and hopes of ending poverty for all Americans are dashed when we spend so much on war and militarism that we have nothing left to spend on anything positive. So he also made clear that it's not just using for good resources that are currently being used for killing and destruction and oppression and imperialism and so on. It's also restructuring, if not, in fact, eliminating the structures that create the poor, produce the poor, and the marginalized. So he spoke of the urgent need for a true revolution of values, because as he said, well, he was in a church when he gave the speech. So, a nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. So as I said, I encourage you to listen to or even read the entire speech. It is still relevant, even though he was focusing on the Vietnam War. which is a sad indictment of our current state that is still relevant. But right now, I mentioned the Poor People's Campaign that is being revived, was left uncompleted by the civil rights movement of the 1960s. At the Racial Justice Rising's website, you can find out more about the national, statewide, and local campaign for the PPC, Poor People's Campaign. We have a webpage devoted to it, and many of our members are actually currently right now at a Poor People's Campaign event. So with that, I'll pass on the microphone.
Woo! Hi there. Can you just tell us your name, where you're from, and why being here is important to you at this tax rally today?
Hi, I'm Allie. I'm from Belchertown, and I'm here because it just seems so astounding to me that our federal government is spending so much more on the military than on things to actually help Americans. What's the point of protecting our country if there isn't anything to protect?
And do you go to school? Are you in college? Where do you go?
I am in college. I go to Westfield State University. I'm an education major there.
Oh, that's great. Excellent. So is there any talk about sort of, the military budget on campus? Do you belong to any sort of campus-wide organization that sort of is involved in sort of any political action?
Not specifically about the military budget, but there are some organizations on campus for women's rights, the environment, because I'm an environmental science minor, and LGBTQ rights, that I'm part of those.
And so being an education major, obviously, that all of the taxes going into a very large military budget obviously takes away from funding for education. Any comments about that?
I still just, I think it's astounding, especially with the strikes going on in Oklahoma and now also Arizona, or where a lot of the textbooks there, some of those textbooks are even older than me.
Yeah.
And it's just astounding how unbearable a lot of these conditions are for the teachers, yet we can spend $242 million on airstrikes over to Syria.
And what could we do with that money if we weren't spending all that money on a military budget? How do you see that changing you on a daily basis as a student at Westfield?
I wasn't thinking so much about me in particular, because Massachusetts is pretty good about funding education and all, but just across the country, a lot of school districts around the country, it would cost $55 million, about a quarter of the money that's being spent on the airstrikes, to fix the pipes in Flint, Michigan, and just a lot of stuff for environmental protection, tax the rich, absolutely.
Right. Thank you so much for talking to me. Thank you, and thanks for being part of this event.
No problem. Thank you. Enjoy your day.
Yeah, you too.
Hello. My name is Stacy Langnecht, and I'm here representing the Salison Project, which is right here in Greenfield, right down Main Street, close to High Street. Salison Project, our primary mission is to support women and families who have been affected by domestic violence of all forms. It could be verbal, physical, sexual, financial, it goes on and on. So we do that in a couple of ways. We work with people individually, and we also have the Salison Women's Resource Center. And the Salison Resource Center welcomes any adult who identifies as a woman. Any adult who identifies as a woman. And we also support families once a week in our safe space. Most of the people who walk through our doors have experienced domestic violence at some point in their lives. I chose to hold this sign up because our work greatly, hopefully, positively affects the children in our world. Children are our future. That's a big deal, you know? So most of our work, or much of our work, is intervention. We hope that through the work we do with these families, through healing arts groups at the center, through our Family Fund Center, through our individual family work, that we can also encourage some prevention. But if we had a little more funding, we'd love to do some prevention. There's a story popular among those who do work in prevention of a group of people camping out by a river, and suddenly they see somebody drowning, so somebody runs over to rescue the drowning person, and then suddenly somebody else is floating down the river, gasping for breath, and suddenly more people and more people and more people are coming, and one person walks away, one of the rescuers, and somebody said, "Where are you going?" And they said, "I'm going upstream because I want to see why this is happening and see if we can stop it." Really popular story in these circles, but it's really, really a great one. It's really effective. We would love to be able to do more work upstream so that violence in families and violence to mostly women, although men are affected as well, does not happen ever again. And our children can have a much more peaceful and healthy future. So let's vote for money for human service organizations like ours and the others here. We all need it. This affects everybody. This affects people from all socioeconomic levels, people from all faiths, people from all backgrounds. It affects everyone. So we're here to advocate for that. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Peace.
Hi, my name's John Waite, and before I tell you what I think about how we could spend money more wisely, I want to let you know I live in Deerfield, and I was a neighbor of Wally and Juanita, and what would Wally and Juanita do? I think that we have to keep asking ourselves. They're one of our most famous war tax resistors in Franklin County. And I'm also, I'm the executive director of the Franklin County Community Development Corporation. And I want to let people know that another great war tax resistor, Randy Keeler, was one of the founders of the Franklin County CDC. So let's hear it up for Randy. So at the CDC, we talk a lot we're about small business and helping create jobs. So what does that have to do with taking taxpayer money and put it into job creation? So with just a little bit of federal money, we can do a lot to create jobs here in Franklin County. I'll give you an example. Our food processing center, it cost $800,000, and we've had 350 businesses have used that facility, creating over 100 jobs in our community. We have a loan fund. For every loan that we make, every $20,000 of loan money that we give to a small business, they create one job. All right? So let's do the math. $100,000. That's 5 jobs in our community. Just $1 million. If we lend it out to small businesses, they create jobs. Creating jobs creates fair wages, helps keep the money in our local economy, and improves our whole local economy for both. They can pay taxes, helps our schools, helps everything we're talking about today. Not only is that loan money, our small businesses, they repay it, we recycle that money. So not only does it come, if we get it from the federal government instead of spending it on the military, we'll continue to create jobs over time. One of the other things that I want to talk about is we have a lot of people small business entrepreneurs who don't even have collateral, they don't have much income, they don't have wealthy families. It's difficult for them to get credit. We're trying to start a guarantee pool, like a loan loss reserve, so that people without wealth, they come from a background, they don't have friends and family, but have a lot of wealth. Let's let them start businesses and create jobs. So a guarantee pool of about $100,000 could create $1 million we could lend to low-income entrepreneurs and have them start businesses and create jobs in our community. So what do we say? We want jobs in our local community, not bombs. Thank you very much.
Hi, so I know that you're John Waite from Franklin County CDC, and you just spoke to the crowd a little bit, but I want to give you a couple of extra minutes to add some additional thoughts about today and about the rally.
Well, first of all, this rally is perfect at tax time. It's a good time to start thinking about where our federal tax dollars go. At the CDC, we're all about economic justice and economic equality, and so we help small businesses all over Franklin and Hampshire County. We're actually getting more into Hamden County now, which is making us realize that there's a lot of folks who want to start businesses, they're entrepreneurs, they have a motivation, they have a passion, but they don't have the capital, and capital is so important. So we're trying to put together funds so that people without wealth people who were, whatever accident of birth, they don't have a family or friends to rely on, that the community should be their collateral, for example. So if we had a guarantee fund and only $200,000, we have loan capital that we could put out there, get it out to small business owners, entrepreneurs, who would then create jobs, create livelihoods for themselves, provide products and services for the community, and then stimulate more jobs. Every job that gets created is another family that has a potential to get a better housing situation, be able to feed themselves, get off of any other programs they're on. So these are investments in our community, and all it takes is a little bit of federal money that could help just give that little support. And then us CDCs and other organizations who do lending to this to people who don't get loans from banks could generate plenty of jobs in the community to satisfy the need, as well as just help people with their passions and do what they really want to do with their life.
Great, thank you very much. Thanks for coming today. Appreciate it.
Okay, welcome again. I was told to say that the next three people that are coming up are going to talk about the environment. And I would just like to take this few minutes. Chuck Collins, a friend of mine, was just here at All Souls Church talking about economic justice. Chuck, when he was young, he was the receiver of $2 million from the Oscar Mayer Wiener family. I forget, he has a little joke about that. But anyway, he gave the $2 million away. Every penny he gave away. And he helped organize in Berniston, they have those trailer parks. He organized them so that they could have their own place there and their own workings. And so it was a few years later when Chuck's house in Turner's Falls burnt to the ground, and 10 people came from that place with all the trailers with picks and shovels. And he said, I gave my money away because it caused separateness. And what I have now is unity and community. This is what I've always wanted. Chuck Collins, you want to read his book? It's called Born on Third Base. And he is still connected to the 1%. He said, unfortunately, he has to go out of the country to actually see the harm and devastation that the 1% has been causing. But slowly, they have faith. They are changing. So before I sing my song, I'd like to just read this pertinent piece that came through. I call myself the listener, but here it is, a little higher. It's called What If? What if the whole universe, making it, all depended upon you alone? Every thought you thought with every person in your life, with every member of the tribe. Black, white, Israeli, Palestinian, Islamic, Egyptian presidents, dictators, guards at your gate, people that killed your mother and father, burned your homes, hurt and betrayed you, leaving you with nothing to trust or believe in, raped your daughter, spit on your flag and burned it, tried to wipe out your race and language, killed your children. What if our only responsibility was to light the light within ourselves so that we could see it shining in our brothers and sisters' eyes? What if nothing changed, but you knew you had to forgive and do it anyway? What if you did it first because you didn't know if others would, but you knew you had to? What if we lit our lights with faith, knowing that we could all shed the darkness that we'd all been living in? What if we never blamed another person for how we felt or how our lives turned out? What if we did it because we love our sacred planet and we want it to survive for our children and grandchildren to take wonder in? What if this is our last chance? Could we all forgive ourselves and each other and light our lights together? One people, one love, one planet, to heal, to save, to share. What if? We thank the powers that be for that one. All right. Anybody that knows this song is welcome to sing along with it. wait a minute. Where are you going? From a distance, the world looks blue and green, and the snow-capped mountains white. From a distance, the ocean meets the stream, and the eagles take to flight. From a distance, we are instruments. We're marching in a common band, singing songs of hope, singing songs of peace, singing songs for everyone. From a distance, you look like my friend, even though we are at war. From a distance, I can't comprehend what all this war is for. From a distance, we are instruments. We're marching in a common band, singing songs of hope, singing songs of peace, singing songs for everyone. Great Spirit is watching us. Spirit is watching us. Spirit is watching us from a distance. From a distance, we all have enough, and no one is in need. There are no guns, no bombs, no diseases, no hungry mouths to feed. From a distance, we are instruments. We're marching in a common band, singing songs of hope, singing songs of peace, singing songs for everyone. It is the love of love. It is a hope of hope. It is a song for everyone. Thank you very much.
My name's Penny Novak, and I'm here for CPR's Climate Change Task Force. And we're really busy trying to help Franklin County, all the organizations of Franklin County that are involved in Franklin County going green. We work with them. The thing that we're talking about here today is what would we do if the tax money that comes from us that is currently being used to make war on the world. By the way, I just heard this morning on the radio, 41 attacks have been made by our armed services at the behest of our president in this last 6 months. That's a lot of attacks. We need funding. We need funding to help the alternative energy field get the backing to allow our nation to become set up to deal with the actual biggest threat to our health, our safety, and our well-being, and that is climate change and the toxic poisons that the fossil fuel industry has put into our air, our water, and our land, and our oceans over the last 2 generations. We need the help that could be given by fewer missiles, in fact, why do we need more missiles if we just stop making war on every little country in the world that doesn't behave according to the desires of the military-industrial complex? Let's bring our military personnel home. We have a job for them here. When New Orleans was wiped out by a hurricane, did we have our National Guard to go in there and help the people to regain the health of the area? No, we did not. They sent Blackwater commercial mercenaries in there, and they did a lousy job, and we all know it. We need our people. We need those troops who are our brothers, our sons, our husbands, our wives, our mothers. They are our relatives and our friends. We need them back here. We need peace because we have to get ourselves in shape for a future that will work. And military action is not going to save us from that. It's only going to make it worse.
I'm Leslie Sullivan Sachs with the Safe and Green campaign. I'm from Brattleboro, Vermont. And after 40 years of activism some of it by the Safe and Green campaign, but much of it by a lot of the folks who are here, we succeeded in shutting down our local nuclear power plant, Vermont Yankee.
Yeah, woo!
Now, if 40 years of activism can do that, 40 years of activism can also change our national priorities from one of death, destruction, and toxic pollution to one of renewable energy, to peace, and to feeding everyone in this country. We know the connections between nuclear power and nuclear war, from depleted uranium to the plans to take the high-level radioactive waste that Vermont Yankee and 100 other nuclear power plants around the country have created and making them into more death and destruction. They want to recycle that into death and destruction. We know the legacy of nuclear missiles and other nuclear weapons from the horrific tragedy that is Hanford out in Washington. We know that under Trump's budget, he wants to increase 1,000-fold the amount of money going to nuclear energy and take it away from renewables. Will we let him do that?
No!
Will we work for a renewable future?
Yes!
Will we all do that together?
Yes!
Great, thank you.
Hi, I know that you're Leslie Sullivan Sachs from the Safe and Green campaign out of Brattleboro.
Yes.
And I know you just spoke a couple of minutes ago, but I wanted to give you a little bit of extra time to add some additional thoughts if you had it.
Well, it's amazing that we are gathered today when our current resident of the White House has just bombed Syria. I think that for many of the people here, fighting to get our federal taxes that we pay to reflect human priorities have probably been a lifelong battle. The Safe and Green campaign, with a lot of other groups and individuals, succeeded in shutting down our nuclear power plant. And it's victories like that that give me hope that even though it can take a really long time, we can be successful in these kinds of campaigns to have our human priorities succeed.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming today.
Hello from the CPR Education Task Force. I want to start by saying we have spent approximately $224 million this morning to bomb Syria. And the speech at the UN given by Nikki Haley said that we were doing it for humanitarian reasons, because we care. This is from the same administration that has rolled back protections of our own air, water, and land, has allowed the use of, or re-allowed the use of poisonous pesticides that are deadly for children and others, that have passed tax cuts that will lead to cutting health care for millions and will result in thousands of deaths. It's not about humanitarian anything. The current budget calls for $4 billion for missile defense, 90 additional F-35 fighters. The cost of that program is more than doubled and will end up at almost $1.5 trillion. The military budget at approximately $700 billion, not counting the black box budget that we don't get to see, includes money to send another 3,500 troops to Afghanistan. Why are we sending troops to Afghanistan? Why did we to begin with? We have more than 800 military bases around the world, which we are paying for, etc. So, what does that mean for education? Well, what it means for education is we continue to be woefully underfunded. The Greenfield budget right now, the Greenfield education budget, was at a bare bones level before the mayor suggested or advocated cutting another $800,000 from that budget. Cost $400,000 more each year to simply do what we did the year before because everything costs more. So while we are not funding our schools, we are funding the military. The 94 F-35 jets that the current budget calls for would wipe out, if we used it differently, all student loan debt. It would offer free college to all who wanted it for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
We could pay for everyone's health insurance for the next 4 years. But instead, they're bombing people. I also want to point out that the Pentagon admits that it has lost track of same to you. The Pentagon has lost track of $6.5 trillion over the last 18 years. $6.5 trillion, they have no idea where that money went. And yet we're giving them $80 billion more than they asked for this year. Where's the audit of the Pentagon? The president has said that anybody who is getting welfare is going to have tighter controls over them, tighter scrutiny to make sure they're not ripping anybody off, but no such scrutiny is applied to the Pentagon. So we need to demand an audit of the Pentagon before they get a penny more.
Yeah.
That would be a good start. Yes. And then we need to bring that money back to the people who need it. So this stuff will keep happening until we say no. Until we stand together and say, no, it's not happening, not in our name. So, thanks.
Hi, I know you're Doug Selwyn, and you're on the Education Task Force of Franklin County Continuing the Political Revolution, and you spoke a couple of minutes ago about the relationship between education, particularly public education, and the giant military budget. So are there any other thoughts that you might have today before we wrap it up?
Well, the fact that education leads to people being involved in an informed way, an attack on education is really an attack on our democracy. And I think the idea that each of the people who spoke today is talking from a particular angle, a particular point of view related to their little slice of things. But what we have to understand is that all of the social agencies, all of the things that lead to better lives for people are connected and under attack together. And so we have to figure out how education is connected to health, is connected to feeding people, is connected to racism, is connected to the bloated military, and find ways to come together and recognize that we have a lot to work on in common. And so we often divide ourselves rather than find ways to come together. So I hope we can come together in a way that stands for what we believe in, rather than sort of stepping back and allowing those in power to keep doing what they've been doing.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks to everyone for coming and to the organizers for organizing this rally on tax day. So what does healthcare have to do with taxes? Well, I think what we've been hearing today are the things that we don't want to pay taxes for: war and bombing and killing people and polluting the earth, and the things that we do want to pay for that everybody has been speaking for, on education and housing and healthcare and peace. So also what we need is a great healthcare system. Just think of what a great healthcare system we could have if the budget was not constrained by the billions spent on the military budget and all the interventionist wars and bombings that are going on today. Currently, we do pay for a lot of our healthcare with taxes, and this is a good thing. This is a good thing to spend taxes on. Think of the Medicare payroll tax and the Medicaid program and the Children's Health Program and the Community Health Center here in Franklin County and the Veterans Benefits. All these health care benefits are paid for with our taxes, which is good. That leaves the rest of the working population and the self-employed with not very good and very expensive health insurance coverage, with large out-of-pocket expenses. And these expenses have been increasing since the employers got the idea that they could shift the cost of health insurance bit by bit from themselves to their workers. Well, why not change the system so that all of us get the same medical care coverage? And why are working people singled out as those who don't get quality, affordable health care? This is a good question to ask ourselves, and I think it shows the class basis of the discrimination against people on health care in all other areas. Yes, we would pay for it with taxes. Under the Medicare for All bill, instead of paying insurance premiums and co-pays and deductibles, you would pay a 2.5% payroll tax or income tax if you were self-employed. Healthcare is a tax question. How do you want your tax money spent? This is a democracy, and we need to spend our federal dollars and our state budget money where it will do the most good. Single-payer health care. Everybody in, nobody out.
Yeah, woo!
Hi, I know you're Judy Atkins, and I know you're on the Single Payer Task Force for Franklin County Continuing the Political Revolution, and you just talked about the relationship between healthcare and our large military budget, and I wanted to give you a couple of extra minutes to add some additional thoughts. I know that you have a sort of a ballot question that you're working on the Single Payer Task Force. You want to talk about that?
Yep. Yeah, so our Single Payer Task Force has been active for about a year and a half, and we've been doing some research and collecting information from towns and from school departments in Franklin County and in Berkshire County. And we're sort of using them as an example for how much would be saved if we had a single-payer healthcare system in Massachusetts instead of paying all these insurance companies all these premiums and deductibles and copays. And right now, budget questions are very much on people's minds. School departments really school committees don't want to cut important programs, but there's a big budget squeeze. So we found out that if there was single payer in Massachusetts, that towns and schools would save, depending on the size of the school or the town, between $500,000 and $1 million a year that could go into their budgets instead of going to the insurance companies.
That's pretty amazing. How many people are involved in this kind of research on the single payer task force, and when do you meet?
Well, we have 30 people signed up for the task force, and we meet on the third Wednesday of every month at the FCCPR office in Greenfield, and probably have about 12 to 20 people that show up and are doing the work on the question.
That's great. Wonderful. Great work. Thanks, Judy. Thanks.
You.
I'm Ken Eisenstein. I'm with the Civil Rights and Social Justice Committee, and I've been thinking that the slogan "We the People" is a complete fallacy, because we fund everything but the things that are for people. I've heard before: education, healthcare, justice, you name it, whatever it is, housing, food, whatever it is that people really need to live is not supported by our government. Instead, the only place where we are number one is the money that we spend on defense, which is now going to be $560 billion in the new budget. The second country, Russia, and they're number two, and they spend $45 billion. And China spends more than that. They're number three. Hello? Okay. But the result is that it's just total overkill. And whenever you challenge a program, a defense program, the argument is jobs. Well, teaching is a job, nursing is a job, housing is a job. There are a lot of jobs, and these are the ones that seem to get cut. And we have to change the way that people think about this. We're building prisons. I mean, aside from the military budget, we're militarizing the police and giving them war equipment to make war on people here at home. We're increasing ICE and increasing more border guards and building a wall. Much is going into suppressing people at home and suppressing our supposed enemies abroad. And why do we have homeless people? I went to New Zealand, and I was commenting to a guide there. I said, geez, where are your homeless people? This is the city I haven't seen a single person. And he looked at me kind of puzzled and said, give them housing. And simple answer, same thing in many places that I go in. They cannot believe that it's an issue here in this wealthy country. That's where our priorities are askew, and we the people have to take back the power and make sure that the money that we pay in taxes goes to helping us all live. Thank you.
Hi, I know that you're Ken Eisenstein. You're on the coordinating committee and the Civil Rights Task Force of Franklin County Continuing the Political Revolution. You just talked a little bit about the relationship between civil rights and the giant military budget and more. And I wanted to give you a couple of minutes extra if you had any additional thoughts.
Sure. There are a couple things that I didn't talk about, and one is fair housing, that the government has pretty much defunded in the new budget the enforcement of fair housing, leaving it up to landlords to do whatever they want. And of course, our president was one of those landlords who discriminated against people and gave them substandard housing while he built luxury stuff for himself. And also the whole justice system, which is again militarized, but the part that actually seeks justice, which would be attorneys representing people who can't represent themselves, has been defunded. And I think the one thing I like to say is Ralph Nader gave me a book and talked about how the American Revolution didn't start in Boston. It wasn't the Tea Party, and it wasn't at Lexington and Concord. It started in Western Massachusetts, and there were no shots fired. It was an agrarian revolution when the British said that they would appoint all magistrates and local officials. Farmers came from all across the state. And if you know anybody that has less time, disposable time on his hands than a farmer, I don't, because they work from dawn to dusk. They walked for the most part, or they had wagons, so the traveling there was not easy. And they went to the district governor's house and stood outside, knocked on the door, and he came and said, "Yes, can I help you?" And he said, "Well, we'd like to talk to you about this new law." And he said, "Well, come to the office tomorrow. I'm having dinner with my family." And the person said, "Well, I think you ought to look outside." And there were 3,000 farmers just standing there quietly. No weapons, no threats. And he left dinner, came out and talked to them. And they talked to him about why what they were doing was wrong and how they were not going to accept it. And that this was a courtesy call, but the next time might not be. And they were able to, at least for a time, reverse that. But the point of the matter is the power of people. And the other point being that we all think we're busy. And these were people who were incredibly busy and yet found time to band together, and try to accomplish something.
Thanks so much, Ken. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, my sisters and brothers. My name is Patty Williams, and I work with the Labor Task Force of CPR. What does it mean when we are witness to 3 statewide teacher strikes in West Virginia, Kentucky, and Oklahoma, caused by inadequate salaries? What does it mean when nurses in our own hospital have to strike because Bay State refuses to hire enough nurses to ensure safe care for their patients, the people of Franklin County? What does it mean when time and time again, public sector employees, both state and municipal, are told at the negotiating table that they have to face either cutbacks in their benefits or face layoffs in the near future? It means that our national and state budgets do not reflect the needs of the average taxpayer, but caters to the greed of the 1%. Bloated military spending further enriches the arms dealers, the same people providing assault weapons that are murdering our school children. The same people benefiting from a bipartisan foreign policy of military aggression, as we have just witnessed against the people of Damascus. No one in this country should be without a safe home to live in, with adequate heat and clean water. No one in this country should be without health care. No one in this country should be without free public education, including that of college and trade schools. No one in this country should face harassment or worse by the police force because of their racial or ethnic identity. No one in this country should labor without being paid a decent wage or in conditions that threatens one's health and safety. This madness of governing in the service of the rich few at the expense of the working class majority must end. We must continue to, I can do this. Yeah. We must continue to fight back, to organize and demonstrate, to march and to strike wherever and whenever we must, until both domestic and foreign policy and the budgets that support them reflect the needs and the aspirations of the people, because it is we who create all wealth. And I quote, "They have taken untold millions that they never toiled to earn, but without our brain and muscle not a single wheel can turn. We can break their haughty power, gain our freedom when we learn that the union makes us strong."
So, Patty Williams, you were on the Labor Task Force of Franklin County Continuing the Political Revolution, and you just talked a couple of minutes ago about the relationship between organized labor and the military budgets. So I wanted to give you a little bit extra time to provide some additional thoughts you might have about that.
Yes, well, a budget is a set of priorities, And in the last, several months, we have seen 3 major statewide teachers' strikes in Oklahoma, Kentucky, and West Virginia. It is absurd that teachers have to hit the sidewalk for money, and they were striking to make sure that their salaries are adequate. Many of these teachers who, are responsible for the development of our children have in fact had to work a second job. Meanwhile, we're dropping bombs on the children of Damascus. It makes no sense whatsoever. Our priorities are upside down in this country. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to raise our children in safety. We have to provide, safe housing, safe streets, clean water, good education, and health care for all. That's where the money should be going.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, so there are number of signs here that say tax the rich, right? We believe in that. There's actually something we can do about that. So while we're really upset about what our federal tax dollars go for, our state tax dollars actually go for a lot of good things, right? For education and human services and mental health and so forth. But there just isn't enough of it. And partly it's because of all the money going to the military. It's also because state has cut taxes, particularly capital gains taxes and income tax, over the last 20 years. But right now, going on the ballot in November is what's being called the millionaire's tax. Who's familiar with that?
Yeah.
Okay, some people are, some people aren't. So very quickly, it would change the state's constitution to add an additional 4% tax on income over $1 million per year. That would bring in about $2 billion additional to the $40 billion state budget. That's a significant amount of money at the state level. It's peanuts at the federal level. Franklin County CPR has already been working hard to get it this far so that it will be on the ballot. We're going to collect the last number of signatures to make sure it stays on the ballot, and then we're going to work like the Dickens to turn everybody out to vote in favor of, it's also called the Fair Share Amendment. So please keep that in mind. It doesn't deal with most of the big picture issues we've been talking about here in terms of militarism and the federal budget, but it does bring in additional money that's much needed at the state level. Thanks.
Sorry. You can join me with this. You say you want a revolution. Well, you know, we all want to change the world. You tell me it's an evolution. Well, you know, we all want to change the world. When you come down to destruction, yeah, don't you know you better count me out, yeah. Don't you know it feels alright? Don't you know it's gonna feel alright? You know it's gonna feel alright.
Yeah, it looks like it's
You say you got a real solution. Well, you know,
well, I don't think we're going to
we all
have a
love to see the plan.
It's supposed to click in.
Yes, more contribution. Well, you know, we're all doing what we can. But if you want money for minds and hay, all I can tell you, brother, you have to wait. Don't you know it's gonna feel alright? You know it's gonna feel alright. You know that it feels alright. Feels alright.
I don't need those corporations sucking on my tit. A little socialism don't scare me one bit. Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Come all you northern liberals, taking Klansmen out to dine. The time has come to choose a side and join the picket line. Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? My father was a carpenter, now he's with the air and sun. But he'll be with his fellow workers till the battle's won. Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? They say in Milwaukee, cleansed by Great Lake water, you'll either be a Union man or a thug or Skywalker. Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side?